Tennessee and what they did at SEC Media Days was impressive. They had great speakers. I didn't think Keenan Pili was overly comfortable being in that situation, but he handled it just fine. He's just kind of a quiet guy by nature. Omari's probably the best talker on defense. Cooper's fantastic. But the story was, and everybody asked, where's Nico? And it doesn't help that Oklahoma's bringing Jackson Arnold, who is also a red shirt. Well, he played significantly last year in a backup role, so he would be a sophomore. But it doesn't help that you're bringing an underclassman in, and you're willing to put him in front of the media, but not Nico. And I think Nico would have been ready. I'm just telling you, anyone out there can defend the decision not to bring Nico, and I get it. But the takeaway from the SEC media yesterday, and I'm sure you're not surprised by this, Caleb, was that where's Nico?
Yes, that was very clear. And that's why there were so many questions about it. I mean, think about it. Josh Heupel's a quarterback guru. 2 years ago, he had a guy who would have gone to New York as a Heisman finalist were it not for an injury. Many people believe that's because of Josh Heupel's system. Many people also believe that Nico Iamaleava, this is his prize recruit, the guy that he wanted to take Tennessee to the next level at quarterback. Meanwhile, yesterday, not just Jackson Arnold, but Carson Beck is there. Brady Cook is there. For the record, Jackson Arnold and Carson Beck are two quarterbacks who are technically underclassmen playing for coaches who are defensive specialists. So, they want to promote their defense. Josh Heupel is a quarterback guru, doesn't bring his quarterback. Again, we're all thinking that Nico's production should be second to none in the SEC this year. Otherwise, Tennessee's in trouble because everything about Tennessee is dependent on the quarterback. Him not bringing Nico was a red flag. But Dave, random question. Do you think he wanted it to be a red flag? Do you think that's what Josh Heupel wanted?
No, I don't think this was any sort of conspiracy whatsoever. I think this was old school logic, just as simple as that. And I respect Bill Martin, Tennessee Sports Information Director, and I'm sure he had some say in it. And I understand the reasoning. And there's some things that happened with James Pierce. Personally, nothing that he did wrong, okay? But personally, that I'm completely defending him. And I've changed my tune on that, right, Caleb? I
did not actually. So, yeah, that's intriguing.
Right. So I'm defending not bringing him. He went through something personally I can't get into. I'm not going to get into, but there's a reason he wasn't here. And he didn't do anything wrong. He did not do anything wrong, Caleb. So I want to be sure. But I understand not bringing him, but I just can't defend not bringing Nico anymore. But I think it's just old school logic. I think Bill and Josh Heupel and all those guys sat down and they said, you really don't usually bring freshman quarterback you don't bring quarterbacks that haven't played a lot unless they're juniors or seniors and they're kind of the next man up. And he's an underclassman. And I get all that, but man, it was conspicuously absent yesterday. And the frustrating part about it too, as a media member, again, I respect their decision, but as a media member, I think he would have done awesome, Caleb. I think he would have done fantastic.
Oh, he would have been great. He'd have been great. I'd have loved seeing Nico there. He definitely stands out in a way beyond the other quarterbacks, a little bit unique, and I think there would have been a bit of a splash for Tennessee. He could have stolen the show on Tuesday. I maintain that it's all about on the field, and I understand that, and maybe Josh Heupel fully believes that because none of this changes my philosophy, Dave, that Josh Heupel, Nico will be the biggest story in college football by October the 1st. Like, everybody will forget about, Deion Sanders in Colorado are going to take over again at the beginning. Everybody's going to forget about that. By October the 1st, Josh Heupel and Nico and Tennessee will be the most trending topics on every national media outlet. They will be too much fun to watch.
See that. All right. Now, the other bit of news that came out is from Tennessee's running back position, and we wrote about that on offthehooksports.com. Cam Seldon is still coming along a little bit. He's supposed to be the next big deal at running back. That goes back to spring of 2023. At what point Cam Seldon still hasn't been fully released in the summer workout? At what point is that a concern at the running back position?
It's a big concern. I think Josh Heupel and the staff are lying about their belief in Cam Seldon. I mean, I do. I'll say that up front. I think they're lying about it. I think they're just trying to tell themselves it's working. I don't believe in him. I don't care what people are going to be like, oh, well, coaches say this in practice, and I'm going to trust the coaches who are closer to the players. I'm going to trust my eyes and what I see on the field when they play, okay?
Well, no. My eyes have told me that Cam Seldon's a player, and I've seen him in spring, but that is spring. I was thinking you were going to go along the lines of his health, but you're going along the lines of just his ability.
His vision. He can't see a hole. Okay, that's a big problem. He cannot see a hole. He's got Trent Richardson vision. You don't just develop that in one off season. I'm sorry. I don't care what they tell me about practice, which is why if the running backs will be good, it will be because of Peyton Lewis, who was out in the spring because of injury himself. And if Peyton Lewis is healthy, I think Peyton Lewis could be their feature back. So there's still reason to believe in the running back situation. Josh Heupel was oddly touting Dylan Sampson more than I thought yesterday during his press conference at the podium. Talked about Dylan Sampson as a leader and things like that. I've never heard of an all-purpose back being that type of guy.
I have of Dylan. As a matter of fact, Cooper Mays has shared that with us publicly way back when. Caleb, it may have even been before you and I started doing the Daily Show together. But he thinks Dylan Sampson is an incredible individual and incredible leader. But you're right. Running backs usually just show up and tote the mail, don't they?
They do. I mean,
he's also listed. Now, again, roster listings are very, very vague at times, but he's listed at 200 pounds, which isn't 215, 220, 225 like you would like him. So how much of the load do you think he can carry if Peyton Lewis, who I agree with you, I think is most likely the answer instead of Cam Seldon, but who carries the load, or how much of the load can Sampson carry? 25%, 50%, 75%, Caleb?
I think Sampson is maybe a 30% type of guy, maybe 30 to 35% type of guy. I just don't think there's much he can do to shoulder too much of a load. I mean, it's again, he's an all-purpose back. That's what he is. He's not a guy meant to carry the ball every down, every play, and I just don't think he can do that.
I'm about to say something that's going to make Tennessee fans very, very happy, and I'm not doing so just to do that, but it's a fact. I think they view Dylan Sampson as a Marshall Faulk type, a guy to get out on the edge a little bit more, a guy to catch more passes, a guy to get in space. I think you'll see a little bit more of some stretch plays, some outside running plays. I think this is the type of back that Josh Heupel has never had before. So while he may get that percentage, 30% of the touches, I believe he'll get 50% of the production, both via receiving yards and rushing yards among the tailbacks out of the backfield. As a matter of fact, I'll go over 50%. When you add all that up at the end of the year, I think he'll be that good, and I think he'll be a borderline all-SEC player.
I think he'll be borderline all-SEC. I don't see Marshall Faulk. Marshall Faulk was able to shoulder the load for the Rams at certain times.
The way they utilize him, not the way they lean on him. Is that a good way of putting it?
Okay. That makes more sense. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
The way they utilize him, I don't think we have seen. Listen, Jalen Wright, Jabari Small, did they look comfortable with catching the ball out of the backfield? No, they looked like they were able to do it, but they didn't look like they excelled at it, did they?
No, they didn't.
Dylan Sampson is going to look like he excels at it. Like he's as comfortable doing that as he is running the football. Mark my words. Right there.
Wow. Okay. If what you're saying is true, that's insane. I'm just going to say that. That's insane. But, like, I will say this. As a pure all-purpose back, I could believe in Dylan Sampson. I just think that there's too many limitations for him elsewhere to ever be the type of feature back that you might want a guy like him to be. I put it this way. I don't think he could ever be a Darren McFadden, who could literally do everything as a running back in college.
Totally agree. I don't think he can do a Marshall Faulk as often as Marshall Faulk did it, which was 35 times a game. So there's limitations there. But as far as touches 25 times a game, I don't think is out of the realm of possibility. The poll question that is on our YouTube page, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button right now. After Josh Heupel's news on running backs, Do you feel good about the position? You got very good, sort of good. I'm worried. I'm devastated. Those are your 4 options. Sort of good, 42%. Very good, 33%. I'm worried, 17%. I'm devastated, 8%. So all that being said, that optimistic news that I just gave you, I am in the sort of good category, Caleb.
Yeah, I see. I noticed that too. I'm nowhere. I have not changed from my position.
I'm worried.
Before I'm worried, and
You're not devastated though.
No, not devastated, but I'm putting everything on the development of Peyton Lewis and what happens there. And I think Tennessee is in trouble without him. So we're just going to see how that goes.
All right, here we
go. I will say I'm much higher on the next Tennessee unit we're about to talk about.
Well, and yeah, so lead us into that. Go right ahead. Biggest takeaways from Tennessee. You mentioned the defensive backs. Is that where we're going here?
Yes, and I did a segment on this yesterday right after the show, right after Heupel was at the podium before the show ended. This was my final segment, Dave. It stood out to me that Heupel said, quote, "This is the deepest we've been since I've been here." But he said that generally about the team, but he picked right after a question about the defensive backs to say that. Yes. I think Heupel very much so believes that I think that was code for finally my defensive backs can carry the weight, so they're not going to hold us back the way they have been the last 3 years. I think that's what that meant. Quite honestly.
Now, can I throw some things at you to challenge your take a little bit?
Sure, go ahead.
This defensive backfield, I'm making a statement, not that I believe it. You can agree or disagree, and then I'll tell you where I stand. This defensive backfield is not as good without Tamarian McDonald and Wesley Walker, period.
I totally disagree. I 1,000% disagree with that. Tamarian McDonald I thought was overrated last year, and his PFF grades were never what they needed to be. Nico Slaughter seemed to be it seemed like he could never turn. Well, that was Tamarian McDonald. I wanted to get to Nico Slaughter. It just seemed like Nico Slaughter could never turn his athleticism, could never channel his athleticism to properly playing defensive back. And I actually was a fan. Yeah, and I was a fan of Wesley Walker, believe it or not, but I think they got some better weapons at safety now, so I understand why he went to the portal.
Yeah, I don't think that Wesley Walker had the overall athleticism. I don't want to sound mean, but I just think that's where they were with him. I'm going to throw some other defensive back challenges at you, brought to you by Don Self of State Farm. Customer service still matters. For 40 years, they built their business on taking care of their customers. Greater Chattanooga area, call 423-396-2126. Go to donself.net. That is donself.net. As far as those defensive backs, guess who I spoke to yesterday that agrees with you? Now, he has a subjective take, of course, but Omari Thomas completely agrees with you. His face, and I think I read people pretty well, Caleb. So I know he's not going to say, boy, our defensive backs are terrible. Good Lord, they're horrible. I know he's not going to say that. But the way his eyes lit up a little bit, he thinks they're going to be really good. Take that for what it's worth, but he completely agrees with you.
Interesting. Omari Thomas does completely agree with me. Omari Thomas said a lot of things that were revealing, speaking of that yesterday too, because he touted James Pierce's work ethic. It seems like Omari Thomas has been really the big brother to James Pierce and has really taken him under his wing, which speaks to Amari's leadership.
He absolutely has. And I'm sorry to interrupt, but if you haven't listened, so has Keenan Pili. You know who James Pierce works out with? Keenan Pili. Who Arian Carter is now working out with? It is Keenan Pili. And Keenan Pili should know something about being mature since he's 47 and a half years old.
47 3/4, Dave.
My bad. All right. Any other Tennessee takeaways before I want to get to the takeaway that I have overall, even more than the Vols, but it certainly affects the Vols?
Well, I mean, the biggest one is, again, I think that Josh Heupel, I'm with you, not bringing Nico. Actually, I believe what he said yesterday. I believe when he said it wasn't about Nico. It was about what these 3 players have meant to the program, and he wanted to show them the respect that he felt they deserved and that they had earned the right to go to Dallas for SEC Media Days.
So I'm cool with either of those reasonings. I don't agree with it nor like it, but I understand it. I think we can all agree.
Yeah, I mean, like when they say quarterbacks that have played limited, I pulled up my old SEC Media Days booklet, Dave. The coaches sent T. Martin to SEC Media Days before the 98 season.
I know. And the next year, Jared Lorenzo went as a true freshman. Trust me. I did the research. I just didn't have time to write it.